and am working as a nurse at the same hospital that I was treated at and given a second chance of life. I believe that's what healed me. Prayer, community, my family, my friends, and everyone needs a little kindness and everyone needs a little hope. And I want to be that person that brings that to the table. I teach my children that we need our community. We need to see the needs around us, that when I pass away, I want them to have a little bit of me to give to the community, to carry that legacy of kindness and hope with them.
Welcome to Keep Hustling, where we are going past the why to get to the how. I'm your host, the always hustling Aaron Gordon, aka NY Risk Advisor, aka Mr. Keep Hustling. In this podcast, we will be diving deep into the professional and personal successes of our guests to find out how they hustled through the most difficult times in their life and their development to achieve the success they've gotten to today. So buckle up for what hopes to be an amazing ride. And of course, now and always, keep hustling. Welcome to Keep Hustling with my guest, Kelli Stahl. Kelli Stahl, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very honored.
Kelli, I understand that it's been a wild ride recently with snow in Texas. So we really appreciate you taking the time out of your incredibly traumatic experience of dealing with white stuff falling from the sky and it being cold. So thank you very much for taking of your time during this really tumultuous, I'm being sarcastic. Anyway, come to New York. We'll show you real snow sometimes. We used to have real snow, but we don't have that anymore, unfortunately. So, whatever. Kelli, I know your story. I've been told that I'm a broken record on the podcast when I tell people that the most important thing that they can do is spend 90 seconds or 60 seconds before they turn on the episode and read someone's bio in the show notes. But I'm not going to do that today.
Okay.
I believe your story should be told by you. Okay. And I'm going to listen. I'm going to turn the floor over to you. Usually I say what inspired your hustle, but I think based on your story and your life story, it will become 100% self-evident.
Yes.
So I ask, before we discuss the current hustle of Kelli Stahl from Texas, currently where you sit, what do we need to know about your life, your upbringing, and your story?
Well, my name's Kelli. I do live in Aledo, Texas with my husband, Cory, and my two girls. They are 6 and 4. And my hustle is my book about childhood cancer. And the journey that I went through has been a 360 journey. I was diagnosed, treated, and cured of childhood cancer. And now I have turned full circle and am working as a nurse at the same hospital that I was treated at and given a second chance of life. Come February will be my 10th year work anniversary, if you want to call it that. I was diagnosed at the age of 8. I was in the second grade. My mom is a nurse, so I'm actually a third generation nurse. So my mom's a nurse, and I remember her taking me and my cousins to the Fort Worth Zoo, and it took me a lot longer than my cousins to walk, and my endurance was low, and I had to take several breaks, and my mom knew that that was not normal. My mom's the type of nurse where you're not bleeding and you're not unconscious, then you're okay. So she just kind of monitored it. And, after several consistent symptoms, bone pain, grinding my teeth at night, all the things, it was time to go see my primary care physician. And I got x-rays, scans, all the things. And after a couple of rounds of antibiotic, they knew it was more than just cellulitis. And at that time, our primary care physician was not only our physician, our family practice physician, but he was a friend to my mom. And after a deep conversation and knowing that he was just kind of out of his resources, I think he knew in his mind, because he's a very intelligent guy, that he knew it was cancer. but he didn't want to be the one to tell my mom that that's what it was. Um, and so, he sends us to Cook Children's, and we see the infectious disease. She looks at me, I kid you not, for 5 minutes, and she said, yes, she has cancer. I don't know what type because we have to do lots of other tests, but she knew right away what it was. And so I spent the day doing tests, bone marrow biopsy, bone scans, x-rays, lab work, all the things. And by the end of the day, I finally met my pediatric oncologist. His name is Dr. Bowman. And, he told my mom, this is cancer. This is not going to be fixed by antibiotic. You don't put a Band-Aid on it and we're good to go. This is going to be a journey and a club that we're going to be a part of, and it's going to be part of my life. And so we just buckled up and we were along for the ride. I was started on chemo within 24 hours of being admitted to the hospital, and I was there for about a week. My community just rallied around me, and I believe that's what healed me. Prayer, community, my family, my friends. My mom sent out letters to the people within our community because, there's no such thing as Facebook, Instagram, podcast to get the
These young
word
kids
out.
are not going to know. It's
Yeah,
fine. They don't know what it
no
was
go.
like before dial-up internet, like us old folks.
Exactly. No GoFundMe's, no nothing like that, so it was all on my mom to communicate, and for her to take the time to do that. I think that's what made a huge difference in my recovery, is knowing that my community was well aware what was going on, and they rallied around me, physically, emotionally, all the things. And so that was second grade. I was like 8 years old, second grade. And then I finished chemo around fourth, fifth grade. And
Story's not for me.
yeah, I finally finished chemo. Lots of things that just went on between all that. Um, but they followed me. So I was part of St. Jude's protocol and a Cook's protocol that they put together. And so because of this protocol or this research project or trial, if you want to call it that I was a part of, they followed me until I was 27 years old. So when I tell you that cancer has been my life, it has been my life. It still is. I'm never going to get away from it. God has put it in my life for a reason. And one of these reasons is to sit here with you today and share my story. But yeah, one of the things in my book that my mom helped me write this because, I'm a little girl suffering through cancer. There are things that I vividly remember, and will always remember, that there were conversations and things that happened that only adult would be able to comprehend or know. And so she filled in some of those gaps to make it a full story. So there was one part where she said, you know, yes, you got cancer, but God sent Dr. Bowman. And Dr. Bowman was not a young, you know, fresh out of med school type person. He was an older guy. And as I said, they followed me till I was 27. And Dr. Bowman was there the entire time, which is very unheard of. I mean, how do you think about it right now? How many times have had to change primary care providers because your one's retired, or they've moved or whatever? But Dr. Bowman was there the entire time. That's several decades. My mom was there every single treatment, every single conversation. She was there. And so that consistency of the care that I received just made a huge impact in my life. And I knew that I wanted to give back in some way. I did not ever imagine that God would put me through nursing school and, all the obstacles and the trials through nursing school, and to get me to the other side to where I'm working for Cook Children's, and I've been there for 10 years. So it's definitely a 360 journey, and just keeps me hustling and keeps me on my toes. And, there's always an opportunity to share our story, share hope. Um, you know, a quote that sticks with me a lot is don't take anything personal. Um, if someone's having a bad day and you get that call or you get that conversation, I have to look at it and be like, I don't take that personal. I don't know what's happened before this person's approached me or before this phone call has been had. They could be struggling with something much more deeper than them just taking it out on me, so to speak. And so I feel like kindness goes a long way wherever you are, no matter what type of situation that you're in. And everyone needs a little kindness and everyone needs a little hope. And I want to be that person that brings that to the table. And whenever I was fighting cancer, Dr. Bowman was kind of my rock. He was my consistency, and so was Jill, my child life specialist. And so anytime I walk into the clinic and I know that it's going to be a busy day, taking care of children and their parents who are worried, I just remember and try to think about my mom and how she felt and the vulnerability that she felt whenever she knew that her child had cancer. And I put my Jill on, I put my Dr. Bowman on when I walk into that clinic to take care of those children because those moms are in that same vulnerable spot. And I want to provide them that glimpse of hope and um, and comfort that I was once provided.
I'm going to
So
give you a minute to, I have a, okay. Okay. As I said from the outset, this was going to be a different type of episode, and I'm okay with that. And I should have prepared myself emotionally better for that, but that's okay. I'm going to do something I don't usually do, and then I have a bunch of follow-up questions for you. How does somebody get your book? Obviously, we're going to put it in the show
oh yeah.
notes, but how does somebody get your book?
It is on Amazon, and you just type in my name, Kelli Stahl, and it will pop right up.
So here's what we're going to do. We are going at the Keep Hustling podcast to, if you or when you buy Kelli's book, I'm going to ask you either to reach out to Kelli and tell her that you heard about it on the Keep Hustling podcast. Please send her a copy of your order, or to me and to us at the Keep Hustling podcast or on any of the social media platforms. And we will make a donation please send me to the hospital where you were treated in your honor.
I would love
For every book that is sold, you and I will come up with something, but any book that's sold to Keep Hustling podcast in order to inspire others to keep hustling, we will love to give back in that way. I just thought of that on the spot, so we digress to that, but I don't think it's a digression. You said nothing was off limits, so here we go.
Yeah.
What was it like when you heard the news? You said you were little. I understand that you had different feelings, and I'm not going to ask, and I'm going to leave everyone to read the book to hear your mother's part because I'm looking and speaking to you. I had a very close friend when I was a kid. I was in high school who also was diagnosed with cancer. I grew up in Manhattan on the Upper East Side, near 1 mile from Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital, and so he was in Long Island, and so my brother and I would have the opportunity to visit every so often when he was there. Thankfully, like you, he's doing incredible as an incredible family, as an inspiration. And by the way, maybe we should get him on the podcast. But I have children, even at 8 years old. I assume you thought about this because you wrote the book. What was going through your mind when you heard that word or that confirmation? Meaning, I assume that in the doctor visits leading up to that and leading up to going to the hospital, your mother probably had deeper thoughts or more maternal predictive thoughts, for lack of a better term. Like, oh, we're going to another specialist. That must mean it's serious. And so on and so forth. And obviously she was a nurse. You're an 8-year-old kid.
Yes.
But that word is a powerful word.
It is.
So what happened? Can you take us there?
I will tell you that cancer was not as common as it is right now. Like people just people know what cancer is. Back then, it just wasn't as common as it is now. So I really wasn't familiar with the word cancer, but as a child that age, I fed off my mom. You know, I could see she was worried. I could see she was upset. Something that Dr. Bowman did really well was he allowed my mom to come into the room and sit down with me in my hospital bed and tell me what was going on, to be straightforward with me. And she told me I had cancer and that they were going to be giving me medicine. And this was not just a 1 day type of medicine, that this was going to be a journey and that we just had to be patient. And the only thing I could just say was, am I going to die? You know, I didn't know what death meant. You know, that was just all I could mutter. So
What was the answer?
my mom told me that she wasn't sure. She didn't know. She said, she was not sure, but we're gonna fight. So
Did you ever want to give up?
no, because they gave me a really good prognosis. Um, they knew that the research was there and it's been successful, and they were never negative at all. Um, Now, you know, it could have been a different story with terminal cancers with other children, but I was not there for those conversations. I saw a little bit of it, but my cancer, my treatment was was optimistic, and they were never negative about it. Like, they were just like, okay, let's get to the next treatment. You're doing well. You know, your numbers are good. You know, we just went from one thing to the next. And we really didn't stop to think that this was something that was going to kill me in a way, you know? So,
I want to speak to the community thing in a second.
yeah.
But I have my last question about just this pointed time in your life, or I guess the full circle part of it is,
Mm.
how do you think it impacts your patients? Both those who have somewhat positive prognoses, meaning like yours, that obviously anything could have happened and it's an illness, but there's research, it's not a terminal diagnosis,
Yeah.
who see you. I imagine that's quite inspirational and quite motivational, and having you as a nurse, it's like, hey, Kelli did it. Look, she's right here. But also, and maybe more on a somewhat deeper level, what about the people who you come across in your 360 whose diagnosis is not quite as positive? I imagine that you personally and they have to be somewhat emotionally torn
Yes.
in that.
Yes. I mean, I was faced with death at a very young age. You know, there were times where I was doing treatments and I would see my friend or see someone I knew 1 week and then they weren't there the next. And you ask questions and you got the answer and you probably didn't want to know that. And but yeah, I mean, it was reality, you know, and I was watching it go down as a young child. You know, I knew what death was. I grieved way younger than I should have for people that have passed away. Um, but whenever you're faced with a patient or a friend or a family and you hear the words of a diagnosis and you just automatically know that that child is not going to live for very long, I think that your instincts just take over to love on that family and you love on that child, because you know you never know when their day's coming, and you just live life to its fullest. You just keep going. You just keep giving the most that you can in this life and make a difference, because none of us know when our last day on this earth is, whether it's cancer or some other way. We just have to live life to its fullest, and know that obviously this child with this terminal diagnosis, his days are numbered. Um, but there are resources there through Cooks. There are resources in hospice care, And so we just cling on to that family and be able to provide everything that they need so that they can be with that child until he crosses over. So,
I'd like to spin to a more positive note for a minute. My father, he should rest in peace, was ill at the end of his life for on and off for about 15 years. And I said in my eulogy for him that anybody who met him in those times knows or knew that his life became about what he called the 3 Fs: faith, family, and friends. And your story, when you were telling it, the 3 Fs were incredibly prevalent. And I
yes.
feel that the society that we live in today, especially with younger people, and I've said this over and over on the podcast, the society that we live in today is one of the challenges that we have is that community, the idea of family coming together, the idea of people coming together, the connections that we make through faith, through family, and through community or friends is really being challenged. And we don't know, we can't quantify the impact of that. Meaning, I'm not saying which religion, I'm not saying which community. I'm just saying that when people get together and when people come together, and it's not on a screen and it's not just through a text or a phone, but the person who drops off the soup for you and your mother when you're going through the treatment and you see them and you know that they care,
Yeah,
or the person
exactly.
who actually writes the letter back, not the text messages are not okay also sometimes, but the there are levels of a hug, and one
Mhm.
hug comes when you can actually hug a person and actually hug them. But you could also hug a person, let's say, for instance, who's going through a treatment and you can't touch them because of immune issues. But someone who comes to your door and stands there in the cold or in the wind and is spending time with you or wants to smile at you and you smile back at them, that's
Yeah.
another level of a hug, what I'll call it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then
Yes.
and then the further away from that you get to a device or typing into anonymity, when you lose that and you lose the 3 Fs, I think that for people who are going through the challenges like what you went through, it could be exponentially more difficult. And if you could speak to that, because I think that one of the things that I wish people understood or listened to or thought about is you can't create a community when it's too late.
Mhm.
When you need that community to step in, if you and your mother were just dropped in a place and didn't know anybody, when you were in that moment of need, yes, some random people would come through. But it's far more successful when you've spent the time building the community.
Exactly.
And that helps you hustle and that helps you keep going. So I'd love for you to kind of dig into that and tell us really what that meant to you and kind of as you see it now in your 360 world, um, where you see the value of that. You've spoken a lot about faith, but community and those that believe in you and those that you know are standing in your corner.
Yeah. And I think everyone can relate to this. I mean, I think that we figured out very quickly that we cannot thrive or be successful without our community. Whenever we all went through COVID. I mean, it was very evident that isolation led to depression and, we're on our screens and it just anxiety, all the things rose up, the percentages increased. And so I think that COVID showed us that we do need community, no matter what it looks like. We need our family and our friends to rally around us. I know that as soon as my mom sent those letters out, within a couple of weeks, we had a fundraiser at a bowling alley with a silent auction. We had a garage sale. Um, we just had people praying. We had what they call Relay for Life, which is kind of like a marathon relay thing for cancer. And I remember they would do a survivor walk. The community of Weatherford would come and, they would walk so many miles to raise money, right? And whenever we did the survivor walk, I was like the only kid there. It was very evident that who it was that was walking, the youngest one that was walking with the older people. Um, and there was just a brokenness there for that community. Everyone was hurting. It wasn't just me and my family, but everyone kind of hurt, and they rallied around me and they just became family. And that difference in my life has flowed over into my life now, is that I teach my children that we need our community. We need to see the needs around us. And, I show them that, hey, we're going to make this meal. Someone just had a baby. We're going to go over and deliver a meal. Or, we see a need within our church or within our community, because it's Facebook, right? In a small town. So people talk. And so we keep our eyes and our ears open to what people need, what our teachers need, what our school needs. And I try to teach my girls that we can give back this way. And that's like, we're all in this together. We can't do it by ourselves. We can't fight alone, no matter whether it's cancer, school, COVID, anything.
I'll tell you what I think is amazing. You said that your mother had to help you write part of the book because you were a little girl. That was
Yeah.
those were the words that you used.
Yes.
Yet when I hear you talk about the things that the community did, friends, community,
Yeah.
and what your mother did, family, you don't need anyone else to tell you.
Uh-huh.
All these years later, as you said, decades. I'm not going to ask you how old you are, but as you said, decades later,
Yeah.
right? You said, we all know, we're guessing that you said that they followed you till you're 27, so you're older than 27. That's what we'll go with.
Yes. Yes.
All these years later, you, and I hope you watch this, because you'll see your whole tone changes when you talk about the power of that community.
Yeah.
And you don't need anyone else to tell you. And I feel like it's a lost part of the hustle. It's the lost part. I've said before that I think that the biggest impact that parents have on their kids are the things that they don't tell their kids. Not tell your kids to look both ways. That's safety, right? Before crossing the street. But it's the things that we take from our parents and that are so important are the things that we watch them do. The way your mother cared for you, I hope you never have to care for your children, your girls, during that specific thing related to the illness. But I imagine that you think about the way that your mother cared for you whenever they need to be cared for and anything. And if you didn't have those implanted life experiences from your mother, that's one thing. And I think that some people lose that on community and the impact of the community and the impact of just knowing. And I raise my children the same way, by the way. My wife and I are intentional about that. But I think that our kids are lucky, and we were lucky that we were raised in a way that if and when, God forbid, something happens to us, that's a challenge and that could be tragic. In your case, it could be an illness, but it could be someone losing their home. It could be a fire. It could be anything.
Right.
The community will be there, and therefore, when we leave every day, and what we try to kind of imbue in our children is that. Therefore, when the challenge comes in life, you can beat it. You can do it, not just because of you, because you're strong, 100%. You're strong, and you can be a survivor. But then the next level, your family is behind you, and our family is strong. And equally as important is our community is strong, and they will rally behind you. And therefore, we can do anything. We can fly.
Yes.
And I'm so inspired. You can hear it in my voice. I'm so inspired by you pointing at and noting the power of that community. And I think, by the way, it works professionally as well. But
definitely.
But just that community, I love that you also look. I mean, you felt so passionate about that community, specifically in the hospital and the people there, that you decided to go back, as you called, in the 360. So,
yes.
I mean, I have to ask, although I'll probably regret it, so I apologize. Do you wish your life story was different?
I've honestly thought about that. What would my life look like if it was different? If I didn't have cancer, what would my career be? Because I don't know if I would have done nursing, but nursing was obviously like part of my DNA. And then hearing all the medical terms growing up, it was just a natural choice for me. But yeah, I mean, I look back and it's like God was gonna put me through trials and turn those trials and obstacles or field trips, whatever you want to call them, into good things, so that I could share a testimony. Everybody has a story. Everyone has a story of hope and something that they've overcome. And we got to be able to be vulnerable enough and brave enough to share that, because that can make a difference in someone else's life that's been quiet and suppressing those feelings. But no, I don't think that I would trade it. I wouldn't trade my girls, yes, it's been a very difficult process. My body is failing, but whose body isn't? But yeah, my
As I
body's
said when we
failing.
opened, you can sit down on the floor and get back up.
It,
So
yeah,
you're
like
better than a lot of us.
like physically, we're not going to be here. We're wasting away every day, and it's like, where are we going to put our effort and our time that we're here? Where are we placing those things? Are we doing it in a materialistic way, or are we putting it through our faith, family, and friends? And I want my girls and my family and friends that when I pass away, I want them to have a little bit of me to give to the community, to carry that legacy of kindness and hope with them. So,
Kelli, you inspired me. I am every once in a while there's an episode, and I am grateful for this entire endeavor of creating the Keep Hustling podcast, because someone's hustle really does inspire me. And as I said from the beginning, your story is one that more people need to hear and more people need to know. As you know, we end every episode by asking our guests to leave us with their favorite motivational, inspirational quote. Before we do that, so I'm going to give you a few seconds to prepare that, I want to reiterate what I said in the middle of the episode, and that is, and we'll put it in the show notes, if and when you buy Kelli's book on Amazon, My Fight, My Story, Kelli Stahl, look it up. If you're watching, you can see the picture of it. We're going to put a link to it, obviously, in the show notes. And we will note, if I remember, in the show notes that, but if you're listening, screenshot of your order, send it to Kelli. She knows how to reach me, or send it to us at the Keep Hustling podcast on any of the social media platforms. And we will make a donation in your honor and in Kelli's to the Children's Hospital that she was treated at and 360 to now work at. So, Kelli, again, thank you for being here. And I turn the floor over to you for our final thought.
well, thank you so much for having me, and I'm very honored that y'all are contributing to Cook Children's. It means a lot to me. Um, you know, this is not about selling books. It's about giving hope and giving courage to anyone that is fighting something that they don't feel like they can overcome. Um, and I would love to connect with you via Facebook or Instagram. Kelli Cory Stahl. I'm very easy to find. Um, my inspirational quote, I kind of mentioned it, is just don't take anything personal. Just don't take anything personal. If someone's having a bad day and they're taking it out on you, I challenge you to pray or just send them good energy, because there's something going on in their life much deeper than you would ever know that's making them feel the way that they're feeling, their anger, their frustration. So let's take a step back before we react and pray and send them good energy for whatever is at home that they're dealing with.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This has been another episode of Keep Hustling. Remember, do well by doing good, and always keep hustling like Kelli. All right, hustlers, that brings us to the end of another fantastic episode. Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. If you have any suggestions, comments, or even just want to say hello, please feel free to reach out to us on all social media platforms. We are Keep Hustling Pod. Until next time, stay curious, stay hungry, and keep hustling.